So anyway, now we're going to talk about attacks. We've been through the basics of TCP/IP, and so we're going to attack some people, or talk about how they're attacked, and then we'll attack them later. So, all right. So we're going to talk about malicious software. These are the automated attacks, and then methods to protect yourself against them, and then some network attacks and physical vulnerabilities. Let me see if I can figure out where to stick this where it's not going to be in the way until later. All right, good. So, if someone attacks your network, and the goal is to prevent the business from operating, at least from their point of view. They may have more subtle goals, like me trying to steal your database to get money out of it, but generally, the result of an attack is to prevent your business from operating correctly. So here's the typical old malware: viruses, worms, Trojan horses. Some of them are intended to steal data, some are intended to destroy data, and some shut down a system. One of the more odd ones I've only heard about in the last 3 or 4 years is ones that will infect your system, encrypt your files, and then charge you $100 for the decryption key. And by the way, you don't ever get the key. You send them money and they leave. Why would they bother? That's like when you have them come and they kidnap someone and you pay the ransom. They aren't going to give them back. Why would they do that? That's an unnecessary risk. They just kill them and bury them. That's why the cops don't like you paying the ransom usually. Anyway, there's no real motivation for them to do what they promised. It's not like you're going to like them after that anyway. What's that?
Do business again.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Repeat business is not an issue for these guys. So anyway, viruses are the old-fashioned attack would attach itself to an executable file, and every time you execute that file, it would spread to other executables, so it would spread floppy disks from machine to machine back in the 80s, the early 90s. These required a host program, and that was the old-fashioned way of doing it. There's no perfect defense against any of these kinds of malware. You can protect yourself against known ones with antivirus software, but the unknown ones can slip past it. There was a contest, supposedly at DEF CON last time in Las Vegas, to mutate viruses and slip them past antivirus software, and you get points by slipping past the most. But I never heard the results. Various people decried the immorality of this, but certainly Consumer Reports 3 years ago decided to rate antivirus software, and they hired computer scientists to write 300 new viruses to throw at them. And everyone said they shouldn't have done that. What's wrong with them? They said, how else are you going to test it? These guys claim they'll protect you against a new virus. Let's find out. And of course, the answer was they don't protect you against new viruses very well at all. McAfee and Norton are very proud of how hard they work to make heuristic scanners that will try to detect a virus by its behavior, even if it's never been seen before. But that is really, really hard. And if you do any significant blocking by heuristic rules, you tend to block good stuff, mixed in with the bad stuff. I know a lot of innocent software I use, like chat room clients, sets off malware detectors because the update process uses self-modifying code or makes an unexpected connection out. In the Cisco lab, we were doing a lab and we wanted to telnet to port 25 to see if the SMTP server was running, and it wouldn't go. It was the antivirus software stopping it because it thought we were a mass mailing worm by typing telnet at the command line. Because it was doing heuristic scanning, and if a process tries to connect to port 25, it's a virus sending out emails. So anyway, antivirus software is really important. Number one thing you should have on your machines, because if you get a virus, you infect everybody around you. So it's poor citizenship to run machines without antivirus. Yeah?
If the virus scanner has to have a virus string in order to detect the virus, won't eventually the databases for these antivirus programs get humongous? I mean,
yes.
If things keep going the same way?
Yes, and see, this is a very useful fact. Computer scientists have analyzed them, and they have discovered in the real world, among humans and biological viruses, you can wipe out diseases. Like, I think smallpox is gone. Unless I might be wrong. I think it's smallpox. They, in fact, inoculated enough people for generations to where there's no smallpox at all, except in a test tube in a laboratory somewhere, and I think they recently even destroyed them. So it's just gone. You can never do that with computers. They analyze this. There are computers around that have no internet connection running DOS and Windows 95 with stuff that's from the beginning of time. And the calculations of the scientists are that once a computer virus has been released, it is never extinct ever. And so the virus database only grows and grows and grows without limit. And the only reason why we can handle it is, of course, because of Moore's law. Every year and a half, the computers have twice as much power, so they can handle twice as big a database, and it hasn't been growing that fast. But it is just long and longer and longer, and that's why the modern approach is to enumerate goodness instead of enumerating badness. This is something a lot of people have said. You shouldn't even bother detecting viruses. You should detect all the good things and let anything that's not on the good list be ignored. That would be much more effective. And there is a product you can download that will do that, but I haven't played with it yet. Yeah? Yeah, but viruses don't run by vulnerabilities. Viruses execute on your machine and perform processes on your machine like modifying files using the usual stack. I mean, they don't attach to a vulnerability. They just are a program that does something reasonable on your machine. So some of them may perhaps become obsolete, but they'll only become obsolete when the whole generation of software based on that architecture becomes obsolete too. So when you can't play a DOS game at all, then the DOS viruses may be gone, but that will never happen because people play them now and they play them in emulators and virtual machines, and those can be infected. So it's like, when can we quit using HTML version 4? You're supposed to update to XHTML long ago, and it's never going to happen. There's 5 billion web pages of legacy code in HTML4. You can never stop supporting it. So you will never be able to make browsers that don't take that lousy old language, which has serious problems, or nobody can see most of the web on it. And there's nothing you can do about it. And you can't just, how are you going to be able to sell software that won't support the existing primary legacy? Anyway, you have to update your antivirus because although the old viruses are never completely extinct, the main threat is the new ones, and they spread in a week or two around the world, and that's when most of their damage is done. So if your virus software has not been updated in a week, it's almost useless. Most of the things that are coming are not going to be stopped, so you have to automatically update. This was very controversial several years ago. People thought they should control everything on their machine. Nothing should go on there without me carrying in a floppy disk and putting it on there. I know what's on my machine. Now we have all switched to using internet every day. We get email and games and click on links and view images and JPEG files and ActiveX controls. So we're no longer having a machine that is controlled. We're just like a fish swimming in the sea, sucking in the dirty water. And so if you're going to constantly take junk from all over the place by surfing the web, then you also have to take in supposedly good stuff to help protect you all the time. So anyway, that's the way we are now. Instead of having clean machines, we're sort of like animals being fed dirty food and then taking antibiotics to counteract it. There's been a lot of viruses out there. Here's Bagel and MyDoom. A lot of these spread around the internet. I think MyDoom was the one that used to scare you to death because it would pop up something and say your system going down in 2 minutes 45 seconds. Blam. Then it would come back, system going down in 2 minutes 30. Maybe that was MS Blast. There were a series of them. These went around. By the way, you might want to encode your malware to get past detectors. This is one of the more devastating, effective, and easy ways to get past antivirus software. You just encrypt your virus. Then pass in a decryptor with the key. And encrypt it differently for every copy. Randomly create a key. Now there's nothing for them to sign, no signature for them to find, and you can still infect it. It gets there and it decrypts itself. You can also just do sleazy encryption like base64 encoding, which is not even encryption, but in base64 encoding, instead of taking 8 bits and making it a byte of ASCII, you take 6 bits and make a character. And then the next 6 bits and the next 6 bits. So it totally scrambles the binary structure. And all you need is 64 symbols to encode 6 bits, so you use capital, lowercase, digits, and a couple more symbols. And that's a common thing done to mildly obscure things. There are people who don't want you stealing the JavaScript on their web page, so they can stick it in base64 encoding, which can be reversed, but it'll stop most people that just try to copy and paste it into their page. That sort of thing. All right. I think I must have hit the wrong button or something. Let's see. Computers. Who can operate computers? Let's see. Didn't get very far here. Got down to base64. Okay. And there are various commercial base64 encoders, lots of things. One thing you might want to obscure this way is the shell, an executable piece of code. This is one way to sneak nasty things and email attachments past automatic scanners. It will block them in email. One of the more popular ways to infect people is to send them an email with an executable attachment. Gmail, for example, blocks anything with an executable extension, exe or MDB or a what is it for JavaScript or VBS, not JavaScript, Visual Basic. And what's funny is it doesn't block by the content of the file. So you can take your exe and rename it .exe1 and email it. It will go. But that's not stupid of them. The point is not that they don't want you to move the file. They don't want it to be clickable at the other end. So you can't infect news. So if you really want it, change the extension, email it, change the extension back, you've got it. But you cannot send emails or just trying to open the attachment by double-clicking will infect people. And that's their goal, which is logical. Anyway, then there are macro viruses, which really are probably the first ones that caught everybody's attention made everybody immediately panic and think they need antivirus software. Melissa and I love you. Let me bring up the source code here. The macro viruses were so easy to write that you could make them without knowing very much programming. And you can get the source codes. Chapter 3C. I've got the list. There's the source code for the Melissa virus and the I love you worm. So, Melissa and I love you. Relatively simple little products. There's the Melissa virus. This is just Visual Basic, relatively simple stuff, and not much of it either. About 2 pages of Visual Basic, maybe 3. Here's the I love you worm. Again, not much. And the point was you could embed this inside a Microsoft Word document. And I emailed it around, said love letter for you. And people would double click it to open it. And at this time, what was it, 99 or 2001 or something, when this went around, it was ordinary business. I worked at a company in an office. We'd get, every day I'd get a bunch of emails and Word documents and Excel spreadsheets. You'd double click it to open them. Everybody did. This came out, and we all found out about it. All of us IT staff found out about it. Was warning everybody, don't open attachments, don't open attachments. One of the guys in our group named Caleb was a joker, so he sent us all emails with an attached Word document saying, I love you. And I got that email. I said, what the hell? And I double clicked on the attachment. And I said, oh no, I just went to this talk. I told them I wouldn't do that. I just did it. And we passed. Every single one of our IT staff did the same thing. Even after we told people all day long not to do that. So our security response to this was to pull the plug on the modem for 3 days. We were off the internet. We didn't really need the internet. And that was how we saved our network. We did not get infected. Because none of us, even the smartest of us, were smart enough not to double click on attachments. It was a reflex action. And so that worked. We did not get wiped out by it. It was really nasty too. It wiped out all the files in your hard disk. Anyway, you can write viruses very easily. That one was technically pretty simple, a macro virus. But you can, there are fancier ones, but you can write virus writing programs. You can use programs and just click and can. Just like Metasploit lets you take over machines through network vulnerabilities, there are virus writers where you just select what you want and blam, out comes a virus. You can buy them for a lot of money on the black market in Russia and such, and they really work. The ones you can get for free are the old ones that don't work very well anymore, that are left over. Anyway, here's an example of them. You just choose what you want it to do. Just like in Metasploit, you choose your attack. Here you choose your attack and your encryption technique. And of course, that's why you might want to play with these things to understand them better. You can learn how to write viruses, not in this college. I thought about it, but I didn't put it in this class. We need programming prerequisites. They teach it in a Canadian class. That guy did it before I did my class, and man, he was reviled everywhere as a lunatic teaching students to write viruses. They have like a special underground place they go, and they have to be searched so they don't have any iPods or floppy disks, and they go in there, and there's no internet connection, and they write their viruses, and then they come out, and they can't take anything out. And after that, the antivirus companies will never hire them, supposedly, because they are widely accused of creating the viruses. McAfee writes all the viruses. Norton writes all the viruses. This is a rumor you hear around. So they can sell you the antivirus software, so they will not hire anybody that's ever written a virus. Even if they're going to college learning how to write viruses, which I would think would be the best training to prepare them for a lifetime of fighting viruses. Anyway, that's what they told me. I met some students at Torcon that had taken that class and talked to them about it, because it made a big splash at the time, and probably is one of the things that put into my head to teach this class. You know, if you can actually get away with teaching offensive security, I thought it'd be a good way to teach security, and that seems to be accepted now. Now many people tell me ethical hacking, everybody wants it. The only reason every college isn't teaching it because they can't find enough instructors to teach it. We're well past the point where they don't dare teach it. Anyway, of course, don't roll any viruses and releasing them. That's insane. You'll go to jail, and everybody involved in educating you will be regarded as a dangerous lunatic, and I wouldn't like that part. I don't think you'd like jail much, so don't do that. All right, worms propagate without a host. They don't attach to an executable. They communicate over the internet, usually by email. They send themselves around. That's why when I tried to do telnet to port 25 from a command prompt, McAfee thought I am a worm, trying to send a copy of my worm out, because that's what it does. The process opens, port 25 sends out copies of itself. These things spread around really fast. In like just a few hours, they infect the whole internet. ATM machines are running Windows and are attached to the internet. You know, this is seriously unwise. You know, the same thing is true of voting machines, and the same thing is true of the control machines at nuclear power plants. They're actually running Windows, and the United Kingdom military just installed Windows software to control their submarines and their military weapons. They're real proud of this. This was their cost savings upgrade, because the previous system was much worse, they say. They're very happy with it. Anyway, these guys wrote the slammer and Nazi worms infected ATM machines. Wouldn't that be good fun? Infect all the ATM machines, make them give you money or something. So now you can buy antivirus for your ATM machine. And, you know, there's an XKCD about this. If you're putting antivirus on an ATM machine, you're wrong. This is the wrong way to do it. This is wrong thinking. Your ATM machine does not need to be connected to any kind of network. ATM machines should just, you know, anything going in there should be brought in on a floppy drive. Anyway, so another issue is brought up here. This is a really important issue. I know 2 cases where this really happened. Suppose it's happened, and people are considering it right now. The MS-0867 vulnerability was patched by an out-of-band update in October of last year. It was extremely dangerous. You can take over any Windows machine with it at all, right up through Windows 7 beta and Windows Server 2008 R2 beta. Maybe it's pre-beta, but all the latest versions of everything and the old versions are all vulnerable to this. Anybody that didn't patch their machine in October is toast. You can take them over at any moment. It's been Metasploit. And a worm based on the code in Metasploit spread around starting a few weeks ago called down, add, up, or conpicker. It's taking over everybody if they didn't update. So the researchers found how the worm works. The worm is making a giant botnet. 8 million machines as of about a week ago are infected, and they're all under remote control. But they haven't started using the botnet to do harm yet. Therefore, the security researchers have isolated the command and control network connection for the botnet. They can issue commands to those infected machines. How tempting will it be to issue the command to those infected machines to, number 1, delete the bot control, and number 2, update yourself with the MS-0867 patch. They could shut down the botnet and cure all the machines immediately. The only problem is it would be hopelessly illegal, because you are then installing unauthorized code on everybody's machine, and on top of that, you're releasing a virus-type thing that's spreading around infecting machines. You're one of the bad guys. But it's so tempting. If you're a security researcher, I have the cure. I have this drug. Why don't I just drop it in the water supply and cure everybody? Why would anyone get mad? The problem is something would go wrong, and it happened twice. Good guys really did make an antivirus, release it, and it went bad. And this is one of them, Nachi. It is frequently inconvenient, frustrating, to be one of the good guys. The cops, why don't we just go shoot those bad guys? Why do we have to get evidence and wiretap and go to court and all that? Why don't we just start killing people and make the world better? But you can't. Once you start doing that, you're not one of the good guys anymore, and the same thing happens here. So you got to watch it. But people did. Anyway, yeah. What's that?
How did they hijack the botnet?
They took it apart. Just take an infected machine. That's what they do. You put up a virtual machine that's susceptible, you get it infected, you take an image, you go into machine code and reverse engineer it and figure out how it works. A simpler thing to do is put it in a special virtual machine and watch all of its network connections and see who it calls. And a lot of them, in the early days especially, did incredibly simple things like open listening ports to IRC channels or join IRC chat rooms and just sit in there. So it was really pretty easy at first. But in principle, if you're infected with malware, you've got the whole source, you've got the whole executable right there.
Right.
So all you have to do is reverse engineer it,
Right.
which is, not necessarily that easy. But typically, they're not geniuses making these things. They're reusing a lot of code from other things. This one, the latest one that's infecting everything, was based on the code in Metasploit. For that, you have the source code. So that's how they do it. But once you have got all that, the only thing you can legally do with it is create your own antivirus signature and put it in your product that you sell. You can't go messing with other people's machines, even though it sure would seem like a good idea if you were power mad enough to think that you had not thought of it, that you had control of everything that would go wrong. But the problem is, this is what Linux people, a lot of people write a program, you think it's cool, what's wrong with Microsoft, why are they idiots? Well, the problem is when 50 million people use your stuff goes wrong that you never thought of. They have the weirdest hardware, weird programs. Just because it looks good to you doesn't mean you can put it on every machine on the planet, and it isn't going to make horrible problems. Anyway, Here's other worms that spread around. All made considerable scandals in their day. Another one that spread by email addresses. One of them attached Apache. Linux is not immune to all malware. This one attached Linux systems using Apache OpenSSL. SSL is an encryption routine, extremely powerful, widely touted as a security improvement. I recommend it all the time, and yet several times important popular implementations of SSL had fatal vulnerabilities and made you worse off than you would have been using FTP and Telnet. So this is one of those examples. All right, and here's Nachi. It affected a lot of ATMs and banks by attacking Windows XP. Then there's Trojans, which is why I'm using an archaic operating system today so I can demonstrate this to you. Trojans are machines, are programs that pretend to be one thing but are really something else. That's all it means, just like the Trojan horse. It looked like some kind of ritual or ornamental object, but in fact it had soldiers hidden inside. What you hide inside the Trojan is malicious content, usually a backdoor or rootkit. A backdoor is software that lets you control the machine covertly. A rootkit is software that hides on the machine. And what a rootkit really does is it takes over the root of the operating system, the kernel, so the system calls to do anything on the machine. Now ask for the rootkit. The simplest rootkit with early Linux ones replaced the init file. Every process you start in a Linux machine starts by calling init to create the process. So you remove init and replace it with a Trojan init, and now every process does your evil thing first. And all that does, it says if it's a process is doing something normal, just let it happen. Pass it on to the real init. If it's doing something like a virus scan, then send it my lies. It will never look in these directories. If it's a list of running processes, show it all of them except these. So you can hide disk space, running processes and files from your whole OS. You'll never find it or remove it with a virus scan or anything else if it's done right. It's very dangerous. Once you find your machine has been rootkitted, you usually have to restore the whole machine with a read-only image because you can never really be sure it's gone. All right, anyway, another thing you can do, of course, is protect, yeah?
Does formatting a hard drive take care of it?
It should, yes. Unless it is actually going into the BIOS, which some of them could do, but not too many. Yeah, generally you just reformat the hard drive. Another thing that's worked pretty well is to mount the drive as a slave drive in another machine, because you aren't using the infected operating system. However, the ingenuity of these guys is unbelievable, and I got about 5 years ago, I got past the point where I would say anything was impossible. But 10 years ago, people would come to me and tell me ridiculous things, and I would say, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. The problem exists between the keyboard and chair. Users are stupid. And then 5 years ago in my Windows XP desktop support class, a student came to me and told me that someone at his company got infected with a virus that turned Windows XP into Windows 98. He said, this guy is not an idiot. And I looked at him and I said, you know, there's a time when I would have laughed at that, but I don't know. Let me look. I looked it up on the internet and I found it. That thing exists. And what it is malware which infected the machine, and then, which a lot of malware does now, it anticipates all the things you will do to clean it off. So you run, and when you want to go to Windows Update, it will play a movie of Windows Update on a Windows 98 box going by to make you think you're updating. But they made the movie for Windows 98, so your XP looks like 98. And they anticipate each thing you will do. It's like playing a chess game. A lot of they're thinking 10 moves ahead. They anticipated. You will now try to you'll now try to run Trend Online Virus Scanner. Then you'll try Spybot Search and Destroy. Then you'll try making a system restore point. Then you'll try this and that. They anticipate each of those, and they have a special little trap to waste your time in each place, make you think you've got it. So you'll give it back to the customer. It's fixed now. Then it's unbelievable. That's why, you know, I always tell my students that are techs, if you're spending more than an hour on it, just reformat and reinstall, because you are playing chess with someone who has spent 10,000 hours perfecting this thing, and they play chess for fun, and all you're learning is why not to do that. You know, it's like I saw an interview from a lawyer and a cop, and the cop said, you know, if you go into the interview room and you're guilty, the cop will get you to confess. This is like going to the ring with a heavyweight boxer. You're kidding yourself if you think that your idea of lies are going to fool that cop. He does this all day long. He's good at it. Those malware writers have put far more thought into this than the person cleaning the machine off has. Just reformat. Yeah, well, I don't know about that. Yeah, I don't know about that. Could be.
That could be. It is.
Yeah. I'll take your word about it. It's getting that way here, actually. I don't think the people in Guantanamo Bay are being.
Yeah, are you kidding?
Yeah.
You don't even need to be taken into a room.
Yeah.
Guantanamo, what about the Mario Cubans?
I don't know.
They're
About
still in their federal penitentiary. And
Yeah.
how many years is that? 20 years ago?
Yeah. Well, anyway, so you got firewalls which will protect you from traffic that is so friendly as to come in on an unfamiliar port. Now, this is an old trick. Like we don't let IRC chat work on campus anymore. We block it because the old bots would try to send command and control signals through IRC channels on typical IRC ports like 66, 67. So of course now all the malware disguises itself as HTTP traffic. So you can't pick it up. But anyway, the old-fashioned stuff would actually use exotic port numbers, and therefore all you have to do is block uncommon ports. Your firewall can do that. Unfortunately, there are ratings of firewalls, and I think I did put that project in this class. Rate My Firewall. There's a list of 20 tests. FirewallLeakTester.com has 20 tests. In fact, let me just bring that up because it makes a kind of cute demonstration. FirewallLeakTester.com, I think. Let's throw it into Google in case I have the wrong name. Should be able to find the ratings. Firewall Leak Tester. Leak tests. Latest scoreboard. There we are. Where's the scoreboard? Let's see the scores. Statistics score table. Scoreboard. Statistics. Oh, give me a break. Show it to me. Don't talk to me about it. How do I get there? You see where to go? Home, news. Get on tight. Okay, where's this table you're describing? Give me a break. Home? Okay, here's the test, but where's the results? That's all I really want to see at this moment. Here are results. Leak testing, kill testing, advice. Personal firewall configuration. Oh, come on. Anybody see it?
Right in the middle, bottom.
Somewhere down here?
Yeah, just floated over it.
Scoreboard. This is, again, the explanation of the scoreboard, but they don't give me the scoreboard. I hate it when people do this. They don't understand that some of us are busy. There they are. Thank you. They could have just put this up there first. That's what I want to show you. Here's the firewalls. This looks like Kaspersky, way of doing really well, and all that jazz. Zone Alarm doing pretty well. And typically at the bottom is Windows Firewall. And see, when they started this thing, they used to have 1,000 points, and Windows Firewall scored 0 out of 1,000. Which is really simple, and it's by design, because Windows Firewall doesn't filter any outgoing traffic. So if you want to punch through the Windows Firewall, all you do is send an instant message to somebody on the inside and say, click on this link. And when they click on the link, they asked for it, and it's wide open. Because if you filter outgoing traffic, you created a problem. Now people can't do something from inside there. And most corporate software doesn't obey port conventions or anything, so the corporations are unwilling to use a Windows version that filters outgoing traffic because it will break their internal software that's sending packets around the network. They don't want it to filter any outgoing traffic by default. It's so bad that Microsoft promised to filter outgoing traffic in Windows Vista, but the corporate clients complained and said they couldn't use it that way, and so they turned it off at the last minute. So even the Vista firewall does not filter any outgoing traffic by default. It can filter outgoing traffic if you turn that on, but turning it on is not simple at all. And it's simple, and that's of course true, because if you do filter outgoing traffic, like Zone Alarm or any of these other products will, then when I click on a link, a box will pop up saying, this process is attempting to connect to this IP address on this port, allow or deny, and 99% of the users say, what? What does that mean? A bunch of numbers came up, some stupid error message came up, that software broke my machine. And so most people, if you could intelligently answer those questions, you'd be safe, but that's us. That's not 99% of the users. So, filtering outgoing traffic is not for normal people. And Windows doesn't do it. And if they did, everybody would figure out how to turn it off because they would regard it as just in their way all the time. And they try to play games and stuff. So that's the way it is. Is there a question? I think we decided against it. Yeah?
Are there any decent freeware firewalls?
Yeah, a lot of the ones that score really high are free because it's not technically difficult to make a powerful firewall. The problem is it's hard to use, hard to put up with. I recommend putting a strong firewall on your machine so you can learn. You'll know every connection it makes, and then you can do research. Find out why is it making a connection to that strange port right now. It's sort of fun to know. If you want to really understand your machine, it's good for you. But if you just want to play games and get through the day, it's a pain, and and everybody normal will just turn it off. Anyway, but that's why Windows scores so poorly, because its primary intention is not to annoy the user. And all right, here's my pointer. So anyway, so I mentioned the other thing, of course, you can send your traffic down a well-known port if you want to punch through a firewall too. Just send traffic on port 80. That's a fairly common trick. Send all your traffic as GET requests to port 80 on the remote side. So it looks like I'm viewing a web page. At the other end, you pick up the GET requests, and the URLs they're requesting contain the data you want. But as far as any software or firewall, it looks like someone's just surfing the web. So you're going to let that through. All right. And here's some typical ports used by various ones. Like I mentioned, 6667 is the IRC, used for early internet relay chat, and therefore hijack, used by early malware frequently to control it. Yeah?
Oh, this and 7 do actually use a tiny bit of outbound filtering.
Do?
Microsoft actually published an article
Yeah.
telling developers how to get around metrics, so it's
Okay.
completely useless.
Okay, I thought it was off. Okay, that's interesting.
It does ask something.
What gets filtered? Is there something I can demonstrate that shows it being filtered?
Log me in. That's the only thing.
Log me in gets filtered?
Yeah, log me in actually asks. It makes Windows Firewall ask, would you like to block this?
Well, you know, I mean, I'd like to play with that and see. I wouldn't be surprised if the reason it asks is because it actually originates on the outside. But my understanding is that anything that originates on the inside won't get filtered because it's active. It's a firewall with a memory, a stateful firewall. So it knows what you asked for and it lets that through. So if somebody comes in on port 6667, but you didn't ask for anything, that gets blocked. But if you asked for it, then it comes through. So it remembers the past, which is a pretty clever trick, really. It means that nothing's going to get any except what you asked for. But the problem is the user is stupid and easily tricked, and you can get them to ask for bad things. But you know, how can you overcome that? That's hard. Yeah. Sure, and this is a good security measure at a company. You don't let any of your users connect directly to the internet. You're on a proxy server. If they want to surf the internet, they go to the proxy server. If you want to see Yahoo, you ask my proxy. My proxy will ask Yahoo, get a copy, and then hand it to you. This is very common because it makes it possible for us to save a lot of bandwidth because everybody tries to see Yahoo, so I don't need 100 copies. I need one copy. I only need one request. And then I can filter it. I can just refuse to go to sites I don't want you going to, and you can't get there. I can filter all the viruses out of it and everything that are recognized before I hand it to you, and so on. I can stop you from playing games and chatting and everything else by just blocking that at the proxy. So it's very commonly done at companies. It's not too hard to get past because all you have to do is view a page that is itself a redirector. So you have the outside page, and then you have a frame in there that you can point somewhere else. And then that'll get past the proxy. There's an endless chain of those. Kids use it in high school to get to MySpace at school, and so on. Because MySpace itself is blocked, but a proxy page that has MySpace inside it in an iframe is not blocked for a while. And they subscribe to services to block all those. The battle goes on. Yeah.
The good thing about the proxies when I used them was caching and prefetching.
Yeah. Yeah, so the proxy means you get faster response for pages that are seen. The proxy gets things first. So you're even if you have a slow internet connection, you can serve high-speed content to most of your users that are seeing and look at the same old page because you've already got it. Yeah. Does what? You can redirect on different ports, but normally it depends on what you're trying to do. I mean, typically a proxy server itself may use an unusual port like 8080 because it's only for your internal people. But on the internet, if you want to see a public page, you pretty much have to look at port 80 or 443 for a secure page. Generally, they don't deviate from that because it would be unpopular. Nobody's going to see your page. You can't type in somebody.com unless you're on port 80. You can put it, then they'd have to type somebody.com:8080. And unless you're emailing them the link and they're clicking on it, that's not something most people would do. All right, so I wanted to demonstrate a Trojan. This only works on XP, which is why I'm using this primitive operating system. They've made this much harder to do on Vista. So let me show you. If I explore my own profile, which works on XP like this, I'm now in C, Documents and Settings, S Bowne. Here's my Start menu. Here's the root of my profile. I can just create a text document here. And I can call it cmd.bat. And did I forget the dot? That's evil. Why, thank you. Can't see what I'm doing because I lost my my splitter, cmd.bat. Okay, good. That's good. Now this is a batch file. I can edit it. I can put in command line commands like echo owned pause. I wanted to have an enter here. All right, so save that. Now, if I double click this file, it prints this message, owned. Well, why would anybody double click that file? Well, the problem is, this is a vulnerability hit Windows NT early on. This is the companion Trojan. Everybody does this without thinking. Windows run, I said, run, CMD, enter. Now what happened here? The problem is when you type CMD, you give it the file name without an extension and without a directory. So it goes through the path. The path, it tells it where to look. The first place it looks is in your home directory. Then later on it will look in the root of C and C program files and C Windows and C System32. And it will look for cmd.exe, cmd.com, cmd.bat. There's a whole chain of things you can mean by CMD. And all I have to do is insert a companion file earlier in the path than the real CMD, and that's what happens to you. You think you're doing something harmless, you're running my Trojan. That's a companion Trojan, and it was really fatal in Windows NT because the Explorer process that launched the screen you work on was in the registry, we're in startup, launched without a path. So you could Trojan Explorer. And then when the machine started up, you already owned it. It was devastating. The official Microsoft recommendation is that you should never do what I just did. You should do this. Run C, Windows, System32, cmd.exe. This is the official recommendation. You should always type the full path and extension for everything you run. Now, if you do that, you'll get the file you want. But who's going to do that? That's asking a lot. Anyway, this is a cheap punk thing to do, to just mark the machine saying I own it. You can have more fun by doing something nasty like this. A net user administrator new pass. This is the better one. Let me show you this one. This one is worth demonstrating because it scares people in a good way. My job is to scare people, scare them straight. So it's, let me just get my source code here. Echo off, net user administrator new pass, okay. I always have to remember to change the administrator password back after this one. Echo off. Net user administrator. All right. New pass. Clear. And then how do I get the right CMD? I have to get the real path. Okay. So let's talk about this one. Did I do something wrong? Oh, thank you. Good. Good. I really can't see what I'm doing this time. I don't even have a screen in front of me, so I count on you people to catch me. Good. And then cmd.exe. Now this is the right way to write a Trojan. This ain't a very brilliant Trojan, but this one's pretty good because what it's going to do, it's going to not echo the commands to the screen. It's going to change the password. Then it's going to call real CMD. So here's what happens. Now when I go start, run, CMD, enter, I get CMD and I go on. There was a little flicker there of something else, but that was your only clue. For half a second, something else happened. Oh, there must have been a glitch in the video card. But here I am, and I was typing that command line prompt that I came here for. I don't know anything happened. The administrator password just got changed. And that was my only clue. So that's how dangerous they are. Change to new pass. That's.
Oh, I better got blank.
No. You could, I think you blank with a quote. I haven't tried it, but you can put anything here, and that's the password. You can create accounts for the password right there in the command line. That's how I do it. Well, that's how I create accounts for all you guys. In fact, if you don't put any password there at all, it's blank, because that's how I made all your accounts in the lab with blank passwords.
It's unuseful when you try to read on the machine. You don't have administrator passwords.
Well, but you have to have administrator rights to run this. However, you can get administrator rights lots of ways, you know. Like say, I once taught this class and halfway through a student sent me an email saying, gee, I'm late on my homework because I forgot my password. And I said, wait, you laugh at passwords. If you read it, like 5, 6, 7 of our projects are getting past the password. So anyway, I was just doing that over the weekend. A friend of mine came from Florida to visit. He's a computer tech. He brought along a laptop. The young man had it. He died. His parents wanted to get in. They didn't have the password, so it took us like 10 minutes. You know, I mean, this is a common repair activity, getting past the password. If you have physical access to the machine, there are so many ways to do it. Now, this doesn't work in Vista, by the way. That's why I booted XP today. You tried it, just won't run. I don't know quite what they did. I haven't had time to figure it out. Anyway, let's try some of these things. you've got those eye clickers. So which type of malware here attaches itself to an executable file? Go ahead and I should get some votes. I guess I ought to get something like 25 or 30 votes anyway. I guess I can get the exact number. 3, 6, 9, 12. I guess there are 29 eye clickers out there. 17. Turn them on the bottom if they're off. Yeah. Yeah, sure. Just pass me an ID or a piece of paper with your name on it. Yeah, everybody should have one. Why, it's no fun. There.
We can still vote in our heads.
What's that?
We can still vote.
Oh, yeah, you can do that. Well, what fun is that? Yeah, you might as well do it here. This is anonymous. Anybody else need one? All right, they got a lot of votes. Let's see what we got. There we are. A is popular. A is the right answer. That's a virus. Viruses are what attaches itself to an executable file. All right. Let's try the next one. So Trojans communicate on these ports. What kind of protection would stop that? I should get up to like, should be 29 eye clickers out there. I should be able to get a little higher. There we are. There's a lot of votes. Okay. What do we got here? Display. We got D, that's the point. Firewall blocks unusual ports. That's what it's for. All right. Well, you've been here about an hour. We ought to take a break, I guess. Let's pick up at 7:25. Gives you 10 minutes to stretch your legs so you don't all fall asleep.